Hello there, people of the internet. So, I have a lot of old stuff, right? Like different firearms from all sorts of time periods from all over the planet. Each of them has their own individual stories and individual histories. But a lot of these old guns that I have, a bunch of them are. Why is my camera stand shaking? What are you guys doing? You guys stay still. Don't go anywhere. A lot of these old guns that I have, many of them are shot out just because they're over a century old at this point, and some of them have been through some of the most heinous conflicts that mankind has ever seen. And as a result, you're going to get some rifles that are shot out, especially since, some of these were using corrosive ammo. And whenever I talk about these particular shot out rifles, I get a bunch of people in my comments suggesting that I used oversized bullets for these shot out rifles. And I hate to tell you, that's not gonna work. With some caveat, we'll get into some explanations on what would work that would probably confuse people into thinking that oversized bullets in a shot-out rifle might work. So I have this little piece of paper right here to serve as a demonstration for why this won't work. So normally, in a normal barrel, you have these straight lines that is your barrel. There's rifling in there as well. We'll go ahead and touch on that here in a second, but just for all intents and purposes, this right here is a really oversimplified version of what it is that we're going to be talking about. But you have the straight barrel bore that should go from like the start of the breech all the way to the end of the muzzle. And as you shoot this more and more and more and more, especially if you're using corrosive ammo that does not get cleaned, that straight line begins to wear out. And it starts to look more like a wavy dune and valley setup. Now, whenever you start getting this dunes and valleys, it gets to the point to where the rifling does not engage the bullet properly, simply because the barrel just starts getting more worn out. These dunes and valleys, those start like cutting into the rifling and making it not as deep, and it stops engraving into the bullet properly. And a lot of times, as these dunes and valleys get deep enough, gas will actually go one direction or another, like right next to the bullet, as opposed to just staying behind the bullet and forming a good gas seal. And so as that gas, say, goes around the left side of the bullet, it's going to push the bullet this way as it comes out of the barrel, and that's one of the reasons why you get keyholing. That's why the end of the bore is such an important part of the rifle, because that's where the bullet finishes its stabilizing process. If the bullet is, say, let's say this fist is a bullet, if the bullet is coming out of the barrel and the end of the barrel is worn out and you have hot gas pushing it at 45,000 psi on this side, then that bullet is going to lose its stabilization and start to tumble, and that's one of the reasons why shot out barrels have issues with tumbling. Now, if you try running a large-sized bullet, like an oversized bullet, through what was supposed to be a particular sized barrel, let's say this right here is a 308 barrel, right? Made for 308 diameter bullets, but it's all worn out, right? So 308 diameter bullets no longer work in it, so you think, oh, I'll use a 312 or a 314 or something like that. Well, the issue with that is, as that bullet travels down the dunes and valleys that has become your barrel, let's say at this particular dune and valley area, it's a 320 diameter bore, right? But then you get to this little compact space right here, which is still a 308 diameter, and it doesn't matter how big your bullet is, that little compressed space right there, which is still a 308 diameter bullet, is either going to fail and you're going to rupture your rifle, or it's going to compress that bullet depending on what material the bullet is made of. Most of the time people say use this with like soft lead or something like that. But it's going to compress that bullet back down to a 308 diameter anyway as it finishes going out the bore, and you're still going to have those issues with keyholing by the time it gets to the end of the muzzle. So just because of that very, very likely potential of somewhere in your barrel still retaining that 308 diameter, oversized bullets simply are not going to work. That being said, depending on what it is that you're rocking and how wore out your barrel is, there are some situations where using heavier bullets would work. The issue with these dunes and valleys is that they wear out the rifling inside your barrel, so your barrel doesn't stabilize the bullet properly, much like it normally would. Well, if you use a heavier bullet, then that heavier bullet, since you can't increase the diameter of your bullet because it has to be a particular diameter in order to go through your barrel, you can increase the length of your bullets, and that increased length of the bullet gives more surface area for the rifling to grab onto. So if the rifling is worn out as that longer bullet goes down the barrel, there's more bullet there for it to grab. Not only that, but that heavier bullet is going to be moving at a slower velocity, so it stays in the barrel longer, so the likelihood of the rifling, which is worn out by this point, the likelihood of that rifling being able to stabilize that bullet, it has more time to stabilize bullet, and it has more bullet to grab to be able to stabilize that bullet. So if you have a really wore-out rifle, try running some heavier bullets inside of it, or maybe even try some lighter weight bullets. I know that bullets do weird things. Like, I personally have a number 1 Mark III that the bore is, like, completely shot out in, but it stabilizes 150 grain bullets fine, but that's the only bullet weight that it will stabilize. It will not stabilize anything else, and I have no idea why. But that is a good explanation as to why you don't want to run oversized bullets through a shot-out bore, because somewhere in that bore is still going to be the regular diameter, most likely, like, not unless we're talking about something exceptionally shot out, and those are far less common to find than something that's just, like, shot out at the muzzle. But just running oversized projectiles through your bore probably isn't going to help, so I would recommend running something that's maybe a heavier bullet versus trying to force, you know, a much larger bullet down a dune and valley hallway, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, maybe you won't have something rupture, but even if you don't have something rupture, somewhere in there that bullet is going to be compressed back down to the original diameter of what the bore is supposed to be. So hopefully this was a good, comprehensive guide on why that's not going to help anything, because I hear a lot of people tell me, hey, you should do this. If you have a really shot out barrel and you are just curious to see if running oversized bullets in it would actually help, then I would recommend doing like slugging your barrel and then taking a pair of calipers and measuring the actual diameter of that slug so you can see where the smallest point in your barrel is. Like if it's a 308 barrel but it's really, really shot out, and you slug your barrel and then you measure that round and it comes out to a 312 diameter bullet, then you should be able to get away with using 312 diameter bullets. So just a little suggestion from me. All that being said, thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share, description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.